So, there we are. Good. Well, while we just await the stragglers, I want to talk about the issue of getting on then. And I'm going to whisk through some of these early slides because I'd like to have 5 or 10 minutes at the end to talk about neuroscience, catastrophes, and implications for learning, and advice to a learner. So forgive me if the first bit is quite rapid. First of all, as I think you know, and as Simon mentioned, then Cambridge is fully committed to supporting the professional development of the teachers who teach our schools. And we're looking for improved training of trainers, for face-to-face training, but not only, so to speak, in the trainers who come out from Cambridge. What we're wanting to do is to develop local trainers who are able to share their expertise and advice, having been fully trained by Cambridge, to do some more face-to-face learning in the countries across the world. Because it's not, whilst I know that face-to-face training from the Cambridge trainers is very much appreciated, it can't be offered as frequently as face-to-face training by local providers of the same high quality. So we're looking at that, and we're also working with the Faculty of Education in the University of Cambridge on what's called a Leadership for Learning pilot, and I hope to say a few words about Leadership for Learner. But as you know, there are 4 qualifications which are available here: the Certificate for Teachers and Trainers, the Diploma, the Certificate for Teachers in Bilingual Education, and the Diploma in Teaching with ICT. You know about that, it's on the website, I'm not going to say any more about it, except to say that what we're trying to do, is to create this virtuous circle where people learn, they apply, they do, and then they review what they've done in order to learn so that they might change what they do in order to improve. So that circle is what we should all be encouraging our youngsters to engage in, and it's important too that our teachers engage in it. We're no longer in a world where teachers can deliver the same stuff in the way they've done it year on year and assume that that's appropriate pedagogy. We're not there anymore. So now, I don't know whether you're aware of this, but we have an interactive pamphlet, which is called Implementing the Curriculum with Cambridge. I've got it here live now on my iPad. You can just go on, if you Google Implementing the Curriculum with Cambridge, you'll find it. And it's actually a very powerful, it's a very, very good revision, I guess, for school and college leaders of what they should be doing to improve teaching and learning in their institutions. I had the privilege of pre-reading and commenting upon the draft. And I just found it really helpful, and I think were I still ahead, it would just be a good reminder of some of the things that I ought to be doing. So that's it. It's not available as a publication, but it is available on the web. And look, this is the challenge that it outlines, because these are characteristics of the world we're in today. information overload, constant change in an uncertain speed of change, multiple careers, no longer a job for life. And we all know that. Importance of and you know, that job for life, we saw that slide which said that the routine stuff is disappearing and the non-routine stuff is, so we've got to prepare our youngsters for that life in the future. Interdisciplinary understanding based on rigorous disciplinary understanding to solve problems. And in universities these days, very often you've got teams from different subject areas working together in order to undertake research. You've no longer got single teams in a chemistry department or an economics department. They're working together, chemistry and economics. They're working together, biology and medicine. They're working together constantly in order to be able to do their research. So that's about adaptability and creativity. A couple of quotes there. Guy Claxton, the prime function of education should be to provide young people with competence and self-confidence to tackle uncertainty well. The non-routine. If you go through the pamphlet, the I-pamphlet, these are the issues for education for success in the modern world. Flexibility and responsive to change, intellectual rigor, researching. And look, intellectual rigor doesn't come about through bite-sized chunks. Intellectual rigor is about understanding coherence across a subject and burrowing into it to test it. Intellectual rigor is not about accepting what your teacher says, it's about questioning your teacher. Intellectual rigor is not about the teacher telling the youngsters everything, it is about the teacher acting as a mentor, supporting them in their voyage of discovery. If there's a book by Bruner, and he says, for Newton, he said, learning was a voyage on a sea of discovery to find islands of truth. The quote is, inquiry for Newton was a voyage on a sea of ignorance to find islands of truth. And we actually, now we're in a different sort of sea, because it's a sea of knowledge. There's a hell of a lot of knowledge out there. But the difficulty now for us is understanding those islands and their relationship to each other. So, and this is a quote from Andreas Schleicher. He says, from the OECD, he says, look, the challenge is for schools to prepare youngsters for jobs that haven't been created, using technologies that haven't been invented, to solve problems that we cannot foresee, that we do not know will arise. And just to quote again from Bruner, because Bruner, when he was in the 1970s, was talking about importing westernized education into developing countries. And he said the problem with that approach was that the school teachers and missionaries went out to prepare young people in those developing countries for a life that did not yet exist. So it was irrelevant. But in 1970, he went on to say, in a fast-moving in a fast-moving technological society, he said, the problem is that teachers are preparing youngsters for a life that will no longer exist. So that's our challenge, not to prepare youngsters in the way that we were prepared, so to speak, for a life that no longer exists, but to prepare youngsters for a future life which will be very different. And look, who would have thought? I would not have thought 10 years ago that I could stand here with an iPad in a hotel in Dubai and go onto the internet as easily as I did. This is a changing world. So OECD say new ways of thinking, new ways of working, using new tools. And success will go to those individuals that are swift to adapt, slow to resist, and open to change. And our schools must be like that. And change, of course, always causes anxiety for colleagues. So we have to support them as leaders to be open to change and not to close it off. Because success will go to those schools that are swift to adapt, slow to resist, and open to change. And that knowledge then is, we achieve value, it says there, by synthesizing from the different fields of knowledge. Well, I've said that. Okay, and I don't know whether you're aware of this website. It's on your sheet, I think. The Assessment of Teaching and 21st Century Skills, atc21s.org. But that's a very helpful website, and it talks about ways of thinking, ways of working, tools for working. So these are issues, I think, which the modern school leader needs to be engaging his colleagues or her colleagues with in schools. Now, other perspectives on 21st century skills. Cambridge International Examinations were looking to a whole variety of different areas, saying what did they mean by it? And Cambridge University admissions want mental fluency, the ability to think. They want articulacy, to be able to say what it is they're thinking, high motivation, and interest in complexity. That means expecting things to be a bit tough and difficult to understand. Because that's what they will engage with when they go to Cambridge, if they go to that and many universities. It is about that interest in complexity, not being put off by something that they haven't. And when your youngsters go for interviews at universities like that, it's difficult to prepare for, because the whole point of the interview is to take them into an area which is not known to them. But they want them to apply their knowledge, skills, and understanding to a new problem to see how they sort it out. So that's the, yes?
Given the importance of 21st century learning skills as far as Cambridge's perspective, is there any consideration for them to be actually taught as part of the curriculum and assessed as such across all domains?
Well, the revision of the Cambridge A-level will actually focus in on some of those issues. And as Simon said, we actually think that global perspectives is a great way of bringing all of those issues into a qualification. So for some schools, the global perspectives has become the core of what it is that they teach, because it links all of the areas that, I mean, in some cases, there was a sort of old exam called General Studies, which used to be able to do that. But global perspectives is, we think, the way in which many of these issues can be developed. And look, the links to emotional intelligence are really important. Cambridge Research did some work to whatever emotional intelligence is, but you can begin to define it. It's actually something to do with attitude to complexity, and it's about developing resilience. And we need to be able to encourage our young people to understand emotion. I'll say a word about that when I get to catastrophe. But look, these are various interpretations of what is meant by 21st century skills. So how? Well, all of our tasks is to develop a broad and balanced curriculum within our schools. And it's easy to say that. You know, we offer a broad and balanced curriculum, but the challenge is, so what do you mean by that then? How is that articulated? And if I were to ask your teacher of economics or your teacher of physics, would he or she understand what we meant by that? So there's a concern with the informal curriculum as well as the formal curriculum. The informal school curriculum is what youngsters experience in the school. And I suppose I've got questions in your schools. Is it the same in the Department of Physics as it is in the Department of History or English? What are the attitudes of teachers to their students? Is it a common approach, or do you leave it to each individual teacher to determine? Because the shared experience is a really important thing in achieving success in an organisation. So we want our Cambridge learners and teachers to be confident. We want them to be responsible, to be reflective as learners, not simply to go into a class and leave it, but to reflect upon what it is not only that they've been doing, but how it is that they are learning. We want them to be innovative, to be able to think through new ideas, and to be engaged intellectually and socially. And look, those same learner attributes are also applicable to Cambridge teaching attributes. And again, in implementing the Cambridge curriculum, implementing the curriculum with Cambridge, I do suggest that you just go through it. I mean, maybe as a senior team, you might spend half a day working through implementing the curriculum with Cambridge and testing yourself about it. But this was a very interesting review of a book that I found in the Times Educational Supplement just 2 weeks ago. Vision or vacuum, it's up to you. And if your vision is not shared across the school, then this is Tim Brighouse and David Wood say, there will be a vacuum which will be filled by others. And there's a paragraph here which says, as a school leader, the responsibility for creating that vision and preventing the walls being breached falls to you. It is up to you to work through the past and the present in order to predict what is possible in the future. It is up to you to choose from those possibilities to determine a goal that the whole school can work together to achieve. But not autocratically. You have to engage your colleagues to buy into and to understand that vision. But the vision, say, Brighouse and Woods, is critical to the success of a school. And look, the other thing is, and the book is very good on this, what is a curriculum? If I say the curriculum, do I mean the same as you understand? Because there's a school curriculum, a subject curriculum, a co-curricular curriculum, an experience curriculum. So even the language needs to be explored a bit to understand that we all understand what it is we're talking about. So curriculum planning should be about vision, mission, and educational aims. And the critical question, what academic, personal, and social outcomes are expected for learners? And it must involve evaluation. You've got to test whether what it is that you say you're doing is actually being done. And it shouldn't, self-evaluation is different from self-delusion. Self-delusion is easy. Because I say it's happening, it's happening. Self-evaluation is something completely different. That's about testing whether it's happening. I mean, testing in the sense of learning from what is actually happening to see, it's that virtuous circle again. Evaluation is a critical part. Importance of excellent teaching. I'm sorry I'm rushing this a bit, but you've got it in there. And really what I'm doing is pointing you towards that iPamphlet, because we could spend a whole day on it. I think it's a really important document. There's a comment there, look, scaffolding learning. And I don't know the extent to which your colleagues would understand what is meant by that. But it's about enabling young people to understand their new learning in the context of what's gone before and helping them to build the coherence. Osubel, the psychologist, talks about hooks upon which one can hang new knowledge. And the more secure is the hook, the more easily new knowledge can be retained. And I want to say a little bit at the end about synaptogenesis, the building of memory in the brain, because the Osubelian notion of hooks is really important. And not only your teachers, but I think your learners need to understand how the brain is working, because that will help them to learn. I mean, as a model, and it's a simple model, but I think it can be very helpful. And reflective learning. Okay, and as I said before, I think that the Cambridge Global Perspectives is actually a very good way of enabling some of those experiential issues of the curriculum to be brought together into a process where youngsters can understand that based upon the same evidence, people have different perceptions of reality. So if you look at the situation in Syria, the evidence as interpreted by the Americans is not the same as the evidence as interpreted by the Russians. But now they seem to be coming together a bit, and that's quite hopeful. But it is never straightforward. You know? Life is complex. Cambridge wants people to engage with complexity. So the Global Perspectives is a great way, particularly because we want youngsters to be engaging with youngsters in another environment and to share their ideas, is a great way of understanding that interpretation of information can be different according to the environment in which one lives. Okay, so we come on to leadership and your role in enabling young people to get on. Because strong leadership is vital, but as I said before, it's a collective responsibility. It being set by the hierarchy is not a great way of engaging the teachers in it. But leadership is important. So it's a process. It involves that cycle of review and what we call instructional leadership is about engaging everybody in the whole process. Building planning time into teachers' schedules to allow them to work collaboratively. Now, how many of us in our roles enable that? Or do we think, well, we're going to have to pay for that, so that, we're going to pay for their time? When we introduced a new physics A-level, we gave Wednesday afternoons to the physics team to work on the team who are going to be delivering it, to work collaboratively to develop the new physics curriculum. And they were surprised that we allowed it, but we wanted to encourage them. And what they turned out was a fantastic example of best practice in the teaching of physics, which won them accolades. So our physics teachers were talking to government what it is they'd done. But it was about building in the time to enable the collaboration to take place. And it sends a huge message to colleagues that you value the collaboration. Okay, and look, evaluation is critical. And you've got this slide, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But this is about not being self-deluded. Now, I've got another brief exercise for you. This was some research done by Viviane Robinson in New Zealand. And she did what's called a meta-study. And she was looking at the behaviour of leaders of schools, and she linked it to the outcomes of the learning in the schools. So she did a huge literature search looking for papers which were comparing leadership behaviours and the results in those schools. So these were the 8 behaviours which she identified as being typical of what head teachers said they did. And I want you to look at those and to just pick out what you think were the top 3 in terms of the learning outcomes of the students in the schools where those behaviours happened. So which of those behaviours were most positively identified with successful outcomes? Again, I don't want to spend hours on it, in a sense there's a right answer because from her research, but just feel it and pick out 3. I think you've probably got a slide which says the top 3, have you? Yeah. If you don't want to engage, you can just write down 3 numbers between 1 and 8.
You have lots of time.
Oh, do I?
Because we have half an hour.
Oh, okay.
So it's 11, we have till 12:15.
Oh, okay.
So enjoy it.
Okay. And when you've got your 3, just discuss it with the next person. See if you agree.
I think there are only 3, all of them are. I don't think there are 3 important others.
Okay. Well, we're talking about the identification of behaviours which link to school outcomes. Yeah, the achievement of youngsters.
Planning is crucial. Training starting. Engaging in feedback and reflection about what's actually happening in the school.
It's important too. I think everything was important about
If you want to be a bit mischievous, you could, and you're not the head, you could write down what you think from your observation of the head, what it is he or she does.
One, 5, and 8.
Okay. There's a man over here, look, phoning a friend.